Tonight we have Diego Fedele, who's actually recording with us from Australia. He's an Italian photojournalist, and we're thrilled to have him present. We thank our sponsors, which is Epson, Photo Shelter, American Photography, and Pro Photo Daily. And without further comment, I give you Diego. So Diego, I let you share your screen and I will make you a host. So you are now one of the hosts, and off we go.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks to everyone who is following our conversation tonight. I'm Diego Fedele. I'm an Italian photojournalist, currently living in Melbourne, Australia. I approach issues around migration and conflict from a humanistic perspective, but I also work on the news and politics in Melbourne for different outlets and newswire agency. I arrived to Ukraine in 2022, right after the war started, and I was brought there by the politics and the belief that in 2022, global power, it's not acceptable that global power invade and attack sovereign countries, which I believe it's a value, it's the people can relate to. And then I came back and let's say I say that I stayed there because I had the feeling that I never leave Ukraine all the time, and that I come back to Australia or that I go back to Italy. And because I stayed there because of the friendship that I created, but also because I made a commitment to the Ukrainians and to Ukraine that these pictures will be printed in a book and will be preserved and left to the history.
Wow.
I
And
would
how
like
long
to.
did you stay? How long did you stay the first time?
The first time I stayed roughly a month, and I went back for 7 times. Last time that I was there was this November, and I spent there each time 4 to 5 weeks, depends.
Right.
I would like to share a little introduction that I wrote you. I don't know why. Oh, are you sure that I can share the screen?
Yeah, down in the middle there, you should see that little.
Yeah, I know, but mm, mm, mm. Let me. I have some settings.
Okay.
No, actually, he asks me to quit the meeting, you know?
Hmm.
Uh, that's annoying. Now I can.
Okay, there you go.
The screen?
Beautiful. Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect.
And if you go to I guess a full screen mode or something,
Mm, mm.
now I see your grid.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I see the grid. Yep.
Maybe we can
I don't know if
take
you
off
have a presenter's view.
cameras. I would like to show you the like a bird eye view first because I think
Okay.
I love working on a series of pictures, and for me one single picture is not really important if I cannot create a sequence and a reportage with them. You know, I think each picture compose a piece of the puzzle. And I would like the viewers to have a look first at the work like this, and then we go picture by picture.
Okay.
I might start with picture by picture so people can pause if they want to go back and go at the old work.
Okay.
So this picture is represented the statue of Maxim Gorky. He was a writer, a Russian writer, and this picture was taken in October 2023 in Chassis Yar. Chassis Yar at the moment, at the time, was heavily bombarded. Chassis VR, I think it's important to speak about a little bit of the position of Chassis VR because Chassis VR has been a logistical lab since the Battle of Bakhmut started. And Ukraine had a lot of soldiers and and supply routes to keep Bakhmut in the fight and alive. Also, a lot of artillery guns were placed on the hills of Chasiv Yar. And I think it's a very strategic position, especially because it's the last elevated position before
Mm.
the most important logistical hubs. There are Kramatorsk and Sloviansk in the Donetsk region. And currently there is a very big fight for Chasiv Yar. Russian forces are unfortunately already inside Chasiv Yar. It's a very dangerous place. Hostilities are going on. FPV drones are hitting military position and also the few hundreds remaining civilians. It's unfortunately it's a no-go zone for media unless you are embedded with a unit, but rarely they accept media to go there these days because they say it's almost kind of a suicide mission. It's highly likely that you're gonna get hit by FPV drone, these first-person view drones. Um, the second picture, oh, I don't know why it stuck. The second picture, this picture has been taken in Kharkiv, almost at the beginning of the war. It was April 2022. This picture represents a factory, a chemical factory, a civilian chemical factory,
Mm.
bombarded by Russian artillery a couple of hours earlier than when I arrived and took this picture. Kharkiv in those days, as well as Sumy and Cherniv, represented the route, the open, let's say the doors to the Ukraine, to the north of Ukraine for Russian forces in these days at the beginning of the war. And they really focused a lot on trying to capture Kharkiv, but they've been unsuccessful. They've been stopped outside the Saltivka, which is the northeast suburb of Kharkiv, which has been heavily bombarded and shelled since May, June 2022. Then Russians have been pushed back a little bit, but at the same time they kept bombarding. And today, Saltivka, it's a highly densely populated area. And let's say there is a little bit of a working class suburb, and he gets hit frequently by gliding bombs, Russian
Mm.
gliding bombs. This picture has been taken in Groza. Groza is in the Kharkiv region in the Kupiansk district, and this has been one of the worst mass killing since the start of the full-scale invasion. Russian forces hit this gathering, which the family of Andriy Grozir, I think his name was. He was a military that has been injured and then wounded and then died for the wounds
Mm.
in Popasna in Luhansk region, I believe, and then has been buried in the Dnipro region. But in October 2023, his son Denis decided to bring him back to his village because he was liberated. He wasn't anymore under occupation. Russian forces got the information that there was this very large gathering, and they hit this place with a ballistic missile, an Iskander,
Mm.
which to make the viewer understand, the Iskander is a Russian ballistic missile which can carry a warhead between 500 and 800 kilos.
Mm.
And when we arrived there, the place was pretty much reduced to rubble. And most of the people that were there, I think there was only one survivor. they killed 59 people, 59 civilians, Frank,
Hmm.
which is a great war crime, I believe. And also Kiev the same day declared that he was one of the worst mass killing since the war began. And I
And
believe,
and this man there is doing documentation for war crimes.
sorry?
The man that we see here, the young man, he's
Yeah.
there to documentation.
I believe he's a police officer who was documenting, yes, who was taking information, but I didn't speak with him. Um, I remember that he was a police officer, as
Yeah, yeah,
you can see also from uniform.
yeah,
But yeah, I didn't really speak with him. But I believe he was creating an account of what happened there.
yeah.
This picture has been taken in Vuledar. The person that is hugged, her name is Tetiana. Tetiana was a resident of Vuledar, and she was being evacuated by Oleg, which was a Ukrainian military chaplain. Weekly he went to Vuledar since the war started and since Russian forces went up to, let's say, to the outskirts of Vuledar. And she was hugged by Svitlana. They met. They were living together in the basement of their apartment building, and they told me that they became really friends and really close to each other after the war, and while they were enduring these inhumane conditions, because they've been living for almost 2 years without basic amenities, without light, without electricity, without basically food supplies, without running water. And they were heavily relying on Oleg for bringing them food supplies and petrol for generators. And this moment, I think it's. I don't remember that I ever saw an intense hug like this, and I was very lucky to be there and to capture it.
Yeah,
But also on the reflection of the mirror, we can see the people that are staying behind. So
yeah,
it's there is this double reality in the picture. And also, I think this picture became even more emblematic, at least with me in my work, because Vuledar has been captured in September 2024 after 3 years of battles. And I think this is a little bit a goodbye to Vuledar, or at least for now. Hopefully Ukrainians will be able to retake it, if not militarily, diplomatically.
yeah. Yeah, these people are lifesavers for the other people, right?
Sorry?
No, they're lifesavers. They're saving lives just by bringing food and supplies and hope.
Hmm. I would like to show you, because I have a video that I shot in Vuledar. I would like to show you and the viewer what Vuledar looked like when we went inside there. Can you see my screen? Can you see my...
Yes.
Yeah? Are
Yeah.
you okay if I play a video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm only
This,
seeing half your screen now.
sorry?
I'm only seeing half your screen.
Maybe it's because I'm sharing...
Maybe can you lift yeah, now I see full.
You see still Lightroom, right? You don't see
Yeah, I
the...
still see it as part of Lightroom, yes.
Mm, let me... Can you see the video now?
Yeah, now it looks like
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect.
And I see your screen behind it.
Yeah, perfect.
That's fine. Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
this was I was in the car with the priest, with Oleg, and we were driving through the Dar before arriving to the second point where he dropped the food and other supplies. I want people to understand what Wuledar looked like in October 2023. I mean, it's
Right.
was a hell on earth.
Wow.
There was literally no building, intact building.
And they know that people are there are certain people still living here. So they're coming to deliver.
Yes. And if you want, we can chat about that. I mean,
No, that's fine.
the, yeah. There is always some controversy on the why people stay behind, that people decide to
Yeah,
stay in
yeah.
these places. And this is 1 kilometer from the front line, Frank. It was a very dangerous place. Very, I mean, I personally, no place where people can life can go on
Yeah.
other than the soldiers staying there because they have a job, they need to fight, and they need to keep the Russian outside.
No, this footage is really captivating. It's really, it gives you the environment.
Yeah, I think sometimes photography misses the word and the sound, and I think it's important to shoot some videos here and there, even if we think that they are B-rolls, but it's always good to have them because otherwise I wouldn't be able to make you guys understand the scale of the destruction and the drama and the tragedy the people
Yeah.
in Bullet were going through.
Okay, that's good.
Can you see again my Lightroom?
Yes. Not your
Perfect.
Lightroom. Now I just see the image.
The full screen, yeah?
Yes, full screen.
Perfect. This is a picture that I took in on the outskirts of Chasivyar. This is the commander of a unit of the 17th heavy mechanized brigade of the Ukrainian heavy mechanized brigade. They were shooting through advancing Russian soldiers into Klishivka and Ivaninsky, which are two towns next to Bakhmut, and they were trying to stop them because Russians in these days. And this picture was taken in March 2023. Sorry, March 2024. In these days, Russians were really aggressive and they were trying to consolidate their gains
Yeah.
and also to have a foothold on outside Bakhmut, outside also Ivaniske, so the Kulchet and the sides of Chasiv. When we had been there, while we were there, sorry, they shot roughly 50 shells in like 40 minutes.
Mm.
And the press officer that brought us there was impressed by the amount of work that we've been able to witness because they said that in these days they were really counting and measuring each and every shell that they were shooting. But that day, Ukraine was really aggressive and really firing upon Russians because they were trying to advance with their infantry and with their mechanized brigades, and it was very interesting 40 minutes.
Mm.
This is a picture that has been taken on the outskirts of Sloviansk. There is a group that previously was called Black Tulip, but now I believe it's called uh, Kazmar. I apologize for not pronouncing well their name.
It's
Basically,
a,
they're an NGO and they have the task to go and pick up and collect the dead soldiers. And
mm.
what we are seeing in the picture is what they found on inside the pockets of the uniform of a Russian of a dead Russian soldier. And we can see the Russian passport here, the airports, Russian tourniquets. Those ones were letters, and this is a drawing of the body that raffigurates a woman. And I thought it was a very interesting picture because we often think that on the other side there are no emotions, then
Yeah.
that there are no people, and there is all the time this dehumanization of the other side of the counterpart. So I think
Always in
that
every war, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly, and that's this picture, at least to me, really brings me down to it makes me understand that these people are also human beings.
Yeah. It's humanity, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it can be controversial. I don't want to be controversial because
No, it's
Russia
fine.
invaded Ukraine, but I believe that it is important to find these very small and picture and details that reminds us of the humanity, of the dignity,
It's a young man, right? It's
humanity.
another young man dead.
Exactly, exactly. I think he was 21 years old or 22 years old, so I think it's important to keep talking about this,
Yeah.
uh, about the humanity that there is on both sides of the conflict, because potentially we don't know if this man has been mobilized or if this man is a contract soldier that decided to take up arms to participate voluntarily in the war. So we don't know. Our job is to try to portray reality and to
Yeah.
show what we find along the way, I think.
War sucks.
No, it does, totally. War is awful.
Yeah.
This is a picture of Russian soldiers. Those in the pictures, those portrayed Russian soldiers in a prison in the Sumy region. I can't really say where exactly it was because this picture has been taken at the end of November. Um, and they're being asked to avoid mentioning the place for security reasons. But these are all Russian soldiers that have been captured during the incursion of Kursk. Most of them, I think, personally, I think that they were at their first fight, or potentially they haven't seen war before. But at the same time, I wasn't really allowed, or if we want, um, I couldn't ask them a question, and I couldn't have a proper, truthful answer because I was surrounded by Ukrainian guards, Ukrainian officials, and he would. I think that they will never tell me the truth or the reality, and also the Geneva Convention asks us to protect and conceal their identity, but also don't ask
Yeah.
particular questions to people that cannot ask correctly, or they can defend themselves and can represent themselves in the best way. I honestly had a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions that I wanted to ask about Bucha, about other events, but I didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think this is the very first photograph we've seen of
Mm.
Russian prisoners.
I think that there have been a lot of photos, especially
Yeah.
in the prison there is in the western part of the country, in the Lviv
Yeah, I
region, I
didn't see
believe
a
it
lot.
is. But yeah, this is specifically for people that have been captured in Kursk, which it's important to remind the Kursk offensive was one of the most significant breach of Russian international recognized borders since World War II.
Mm.
But I also believe, speaking with a lot of friends and soldiers and other colleagues, that Kursk, it's not among Ukrainians. It's not really well seen because there are a lot of troops suffering in the Donetsk region, Donetsk and Luhansk region, maybe better known as the Donbas region. and
Yeah.
potentially all this they have sent the most elite of the Ukrainian troops to the offensive in Kursk, but potentially they could have better use them and in the Donetsk region to defend logistical hubs like Pokrovsk or Kurakove or Vuhledar itself. But of course, I'm not military expert, so I can't really speak more about this. But I can just report
Yeah.
you guys what I've heard. Uh, and I've heard that the people weren't really happy about this, especially because in Kursk there is a completely blackout. Starlink doesn't work, and the battlefield on the Ukrainian side is completely transparent for Russians, and it's a very very dangerous place.
Mm.
This picture has been taken outside the rehabilitation center in Kiev. He was a soldier. He is a soldier, a former soldier, Ukrainian soldier who has been injured during the counteroffensive of 2022 in the Luhansk region. He lost both of his legs, and he was undergoing rehabilitation. Recently, I saw a story from the New York Times. They portrayed him in Boston. His dream was to run the Boston Marathon. And I think right after, when is the Boston Marathon, Frank?
It's usually I forget the name. It's I believe it's April 1st. Was some day
Okay.
in April. I
Okay. A
forget.
photograph. I took this picture in February 2023, and I think right after, in April, he was already in America trying to run this marathon. I believe he has run the first kilometer, but I think it was a huge step for him. I mean, we see him in
Yeah,
this picture. There is struggling to walk and struggling to move his first steps. So I believe it's a very big achievement for him.
beautiful. It's a long journey. Yeah.
Hmm. This is a picture that has been taken in a stabilization point in the Liman direction. It was taken in November or December 2022, when there was still a lot of access for media to stabilization point, and you would still be able to get very very close to what was happening and have a better understanding of the situation on the ground. This soldier was wounded by sniper fire. I think he was in Sivesk direction, and the doctors are from the 66th Brigade, which they've done an amazing job since the beginning of the war. And I actually visited the last trip in actually two trips ago in March 2024, and I found still the same doctors still
All right.
work, and they were telling me that they didn't really have a break for 2 years, and they've been working straight. I think it's important to keep reminding, especially about the doctors, that they are often behind the behind the scenes doing very
Yeah.
important work. Especially because when soldiers arrive at this stabilization point, if they are able to arrive alive at the stabilization point, we are sure that after they arrive there, they will survive the journey
Mm.
to the next clinic and to the rehabilitation. And then they do an amazing work. And often I spoke with the surgeons, the readapted the traumatologists, which in a civilian life they were like dentists or other
Mm.
kind of doctors. They were really traumatologists or
Yeah.
emergency surgeon. I think it's important to keep reminding, to
Yeah.
keep talking about them.
Heroes everywhere.
Mm. This is a picture that has been taken in Cherniv, and it shows the scars of war. Chernihiv, as I said before, together with Kharkiv and Sumy, was one of the first point of access to the north of Ukraine, and Russians have been very heavy-handed on Chernihiv until they decided to retreat, until they understood that there wasn't possible to encircle Chernihiv or Kiev. They almost succeeded in encircling Chernihiv, but they didn't manage to break the defenses of the cities. And what they did, they applied the same tactics that they apply in Grozny, in Chechnya, for instance, the scorched earth bombing and hitting the cities with heavy artillery, with saturation fire, with Grad rockets, 152 millimeter caliber artillery, and pretty much leveling the cities. And this is a picture that shows that on the outskirts of Chernihiv. This is Vladislav. Vladislav was a 19 years old tank driver. His story struck me particularly because, as we can see from this picture, he is a very young man. As a very young man that was already part of the Ukrainian army before the full-scale invasion in 2022. And he told me that when the war started, he was already on guard and they were already pretty much ready for the full-scale invasion. Basically, he was while he was defending Chernihiv, they had a mortar strike and their tank suffered a mobility kill, which is the loss of I believe it was the right track of the tank. The tank was still fully function. It just needed to be towed away. And basically, what they were doing, Vladislav and another comrade, they were stationed in a abandoned, bombed out entertainment house where there were like video games and pool tables. And they were stationed in the basement of this former entertainment house, guarding the tank, waiting that it will be towed away. And again, it really strikes me because this picture we really see that there is a young man, there is fighting this war, there is that brings a lot of suffering to a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is another very intimate moment. This picture has been taken in a barrack of the 30th Brigade. They were a unit of combat medics. On the right, on the center right, we have the Colonel Mikhailo, which was a chaplain, a military chaplain. He just he had finished a mass service where he spoke about the psychological toll of the war and how to deal with the stress that comes from the war, but also speaking about God. And in this picture, we can see a very intimate moment where he said that this combat medic on the center left, he was one of the most brave soldiers and medics that they had. He was one of the youngest one. He was around 32 years old. He was kind of blessing him, and I thought that this moment it's not something that we see every day in the war. We usually see a lot of trenches, or maybe not even trenches, but a lot of guns shooting
Yeah.
and a lot of action that we can't really relate to it. But I think at this moment it's particular because he is kind of blessing him. He's saying him, please stay safe. He's trying to pass on the energy and the goodwills that he has. And this was north of Bakhmut in a time that Bakhmut was heavily under fire, and the Battle of Bakhmut was well underway. Um, and I think he needed all the encouragement that he could get.
Yeah. Very quiet moments.
Mm. I don't know why. Picture was here. This is a picture. You may have seen a lot of picture from this
Yeah.
place. This is a picture from Izium cemetery and mass grave after the counteroffensive Ukrainian forces in September 22 in the Kharkiv region. They found out that there was a mass grave that contained at least 440 civilians, which some had died for natural causes, but others have died for because they've been shot or because they've been shelled, potentially by which side, I don't know. I don't want to speculate on it.
Yeah.
But what really struck me the most is that the Russians used just a number to recognize these people, to identify these people. And on these wooden crosses that you see, they use them as mainly markers with the numbers engraved in each grave. And that was for me a very, very distressing moment because I believe we all preserve and have an identity, but in the moment, even the dead bodies, the dead have been deprived of their identity.
Yeah. And these are Ukrainian soldiers or Russian soldiers?
No, these were civilians. These were civilians, Ukrainian
Civilians.
civilians. Yeah.
Mm.
Were
Horrible.
Ukrainian civilians, and there was another place on the left hand side from where this picture has been taken, where there was an actual literally a mass grave with soldiers, and I think they were a mix or Russians and Ukrainian. I'm not really sure about it.
Mm.
This is a picture that I found among the rubbles in Cherny market. I think this picture really brought me back to how difficult this conflict is to understand. We in this picture we can see a soldier, potentially a Ukrainian man, that was wearing the uniform of the Red Army. So potentially, I tried just to imagine what kind of story
Yeah.
there might be, and I took this picture just because it reminds me of the complexity, but also of how memory can be erased and cancelled by wars and yeah, wars and also years and years and years of hatred and try to erase each other culture, each other memories.
Mm.
This is a picture that I've taken in Sivesk. Sivesk is part of the Bakhmut. It is a Bakhmut district. It's north of Bakhmut. Is probably 15-20 kilometers from Bakhmut. And the place was heavily under fire. Has been heavily under fire for over 3 years now because it's pretty much the only place in the north of Donetsk region that there hasn't been occupied by Russian forces. But again, Russia used the same tactics or scorched earth, trying to level down the city. And I have been there a couple of times, and I saw many of these high-rise Soviet buildings all reduced into blackened skeletons. And then there were at the time that I visited, I didn't visit the last trip, but in March 2024 there were more than 100 people still living there, and then they were all living in the basement of these blackened buildings, again, without basic amenities, without electricity, without running water. Even the firefighters were evacuated, the police was evacuated as well. So if anything happened in the city, nobody literally would be able to rescue or give you an hand. potentially Ukrainian soldiers who could have laid an end, but at the same time, why, if there has been an evacuation order, why these people are staying behind? Why these people are not evacuating? This is a topic that has interested me a lot, and then I try to answer to these questions. But all the time that I ask you a question, I get very different answers. One of them is our home is our heritage. Also, I've heard, I don't hide that I've heard opposing opinions. And also, I've heard that they're staying behind because they're waiting for Russian soldiers to let's quote unquote liberate them. But also I've heard the fact that they feel the people in the eastern Ukraine feel hopeless about Western Ukraine, and they feel hopeless in the way that they don't feel useful, they don't feel accepted by Kyiv or Lviv or other cities in Western
Right.
Ukraine. So as a mentality, because they are seen as the poor side of the Ukraine, the working class area Ukraine, the mining area, and they don't know how they could contribute to the life there. But also there is the reality, which is a lot of older people stay behind, stay in the frontline towns, and their pension is 2,500 hryvnias. 2,500 hryvnias translate in 50 euro a month, 55 or 60 US dollars. And I believe, as you can understand, with 50 euro a month, potentially you are not able to go anywhere. But at the same time, there is a program that the Ukrainian government has implemented since the start of the war. The gives the helps people that have been internally displaced, and gives a shelter and gives a support for the first 2 years. But after 2 years,
Mm,
it's a question that they cannot answer, and potentially that's why they stay behind, that they don't want to leave their houses.
mm.
I think it's
Where and where do they go, right? I mean, they don't have places to go, and yeah,
hmm. Yeah, potentially. At the same time, Frank, I think Ukrainian officials, Ukrainian government has opened up shelters, has opened up other places for them to have at least a roof on their head. But of course, it's not their house, it's not the
mm,
places that they have known for all their life. But
yeah,
for me, honestly, that I saw how they live, I think sometimes I think it's madness to keep living in these conditions, even though it's no your house. But if I had the choice, of course, it's not my place to decide, but just get out of there and try to rebuild your life. But potentially, I understand that some people don't have this will, don't have the capability of
yeah.
adapting to a new situation, and potentially maybe there is even the language problem. Maybe they speak only Russian, they don't speak Ukrainian, and maybe they never went out from the Donetsk region, so they feel even awkward to walk around East Western Ukraine. And I don't know. I think that there
It's
are
a
a lot of
difficult.
factors
Yeah,
to be taken in account. Also the Russia propaganda since the fall of Soviet Union, and even before the fall of Soviet Union. I think Russia propaganda has done a very great job, the great quote unquote, of course, in manipulating their minds and making them believe the Western Ukraine is a threat for them, and that they will never be able to resettle, that they are Nazis, that this and that. And I think this has plays actually even today a role in the mind of these people when they decide to don't evacuate, to stay there. But the fate is almost sure, Frank. Unfortunately, most of them will die, and the people that won't die, they will end up living under Russian occupation, and I'm not 100% sure what Russian occupation looks
Pick
like.
your poison, right? We have the expression, pick the poison you want to eat, swallow.
Yeah, potentially.
Right? It's terrible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
no, it's very sad. Your choices are from bad to worse. What do you
yeah,
really do? And you
but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, it's potentially in the West, we are held a pretty high standard, Frank. We don't treat people inhumanely. We don't. I don't know. Uh, we try to give our citizens in Western nations a pretty good life with human rights, with everything that they need. So potentially, the people that stay behind don't even have a clear picture of what's there for them.
yeah,
Potentially, they are fed and they are blinded by this propaganda that they're gonna get killed, they will live under Nazis and
mhm.
all these awful things.
Propaganda is a tool of war as well.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Since
Mm,
since always, since World War One, World War Two,
yeah,
and especially Ukraine, I think we are seeing a lot of these, and I think that there is almost a second war that is being fought on the informational space, where everyone is trying to win this informational war.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And this is again another family that I photographed in Chasivyar, where the mother was telling me that the mother Ludmila that we can see on the right hand side of the frame was telling me that they want to evacuate because they don't know where they will go, and then they are old. Also, Alexandra that we see on the right hand side of the frame who had sustained a brain injury when she was young, and she never recovered from the injury, and her mother Ludmila was has been taking care of her for her life, while their two children, their two sons, her two sons, sorry, went went in other places, so Ukraine. And they didn't really take care of them. At the same time, she was telling me, no, where I need to go, nobody will need me, and this. And I remember what struck me the most, that Alexandra had a very, she couldn't express herself, she couldn't talk. Um, and I remember when she would hear artillery working in and out, Russian artillery coming in, but also Ukrainian artillery going out, she would start to hum, like she would start to move her head, she will start to make a noise, a very, very uncomfortable noise, to make her mother know that she was uncomfortable. And as soon as she would start to do this, her mother had to take her and try to walk around the town, around danger, because at the time, potentially, um, a mortar shell or an artillery shell could hit the town. At the time, wasn't really the time for at the time, FPV drones weren't really a big thing yet, and there wasn't a threat in the sense, but artillery was a very, very big threat, and they were 7 kilometers from the front line when this picture has been taken.
And Diego, who
Yeah.
at this point, who are you traveling with?
In this trip, I was with a journalist and another photographer friend and a fixer,
Okay.
but along the journey, I tried to travel with less people, as less people as possible, because I think it's very intrusive when you are 4 or 5 people, or even 3 or 4 people. I think it's very intrusive, especially when you try to tell these small intimate stories. I think arriving there with 2 people with a camera, a person with a recorder, I think it's a little bit too much. And every time after this trip that I went back, I tried to diminish the time that I would spend with other colleagues. I traveled with only one more photographer and the fixer. But every time that I can I travel, I try to travel mainly with the fixer or on my own because I built a lot of contacts and I'm
Mm,
able to travel even on my own. For instance, the last trip that I took in November, this last November, I spent 4 or 5 days with the fixer because I was working on assignment for Getty. Um, and after that, I mainly worked on my own, which with contacts and visiting people that I met in previous trips, which I think it's a way better better way, at least for me and for my experience for the work, and also the experience of the soldiers and the civilians. To have just one person that come and visit you because otherwise can be a little bit
so,
again intrusive. Also, it's very difficult for military to organize security wise because one thing is to take one person or two people, but another thing is to take a full team with 3 4 people, especially if you have to go inside their armored vehicles, or
mm,
if you have to stay in a blindage where or in the trenches where it's made for only one person, it's
mm,
very difficult to move around, and I think the access is mm, way better, and I think it's way more respectful to
mm,
be on your own or a little max with a fixer, or if extremely necessary, cost-wise or security-wise, to share with a colleague. It's always good to don't be more than two working people and one fixer, which is working as well, which is a colleague. But he's not taking pictures, he's not
yeah,
not
yeah,
participating in that's what I mean. Did I respond to your question?
yeah, yeah.
Mm. This is Valeri. Valeri was a man of 53 years old. He was a resident of Bakhmut. This picture has been taken at the Konstantinivka hospital. He was cooking outside in Bakhmut because at the time there was no gas, no electricity. It was pretty much impossible for them to cook inside. And what they would do, they, as well as in other parts of the front line, even at the beginning of the war in Kharkiv, in the suburb Saltivka, they would gather some firewood and they would cook outside. And that's what he was doing at the time that a mortar shell landed close to him, injured him. I think he had a broken um, arm, and he had some fragments, some sharpnels inside his bodies. And this picture had been taken probably 3 or 4 days after he underwent surgery, and he was recovering. He was at the hospital recovering. For instance, I spoke a little while with him, and he was very concerned about the propaganda. He was very concerned about a place where to go and live. And before we left, we asked him if he would go back to Bakhmut. He said, yes, yes, of course I'm going back to Bakhmut. Where else I had to go? Which I found it pretty compelling, if I can say, because Bakhmut in these days was February 2023, and it was heavily contested and heavily bombarded. This is a picture that's been taken in the suburb of Kharkiv, Saltivka, in December 2022. Um, I don't remember, and I apologize for not pronouncing well the name. I think the name of the market was Barbosho. It's a very big market in the area in the suburb of Saltivka, which was destroyed during in the very first days of the war, and then it was rebuilt. And this is a little bit a picture that reminds me that war didn't leave them, especially because you see these Czech hedgehogs around. These people are waiting at a bus station. Even if Russia have been pushed back, the war is always there. The war is always with them.
in their minds.
Mm.
And Diego, what do you
Yeah.
do when you have some of your colleagues, right,
Mhm.
other photographers who you can tell are under stress, that it's
Uh-huh.
really becoming a little bit too much for them? You
What
know
do I
what I
do?
mean? Like from a mental stress, like you come upon a photographer who's maybe by himself or by herself, and you could tell that something is off. Does that happen?
In Ukraine
Yeah, in
or
Ukraine, it's you and one other person, and now you come upon two other people,
Mhm.
photographers, and somebody you could tell is not doing well emotionally because of the war crimes of dead, but whatever it may be, all the
Mhm.
destruction, they may have been there too long. Do you come
Mhm.
across situations like that?
Mhm. Look, I think the Ukraine is a beautiful place for talking and sharing the experience. So if I will come across, it happened to me in the past, but um, I don't know if I can share this experience. But anyway, I share it without mentioning places
Yeah,
and
please.
names. I met a colleague which was on her own, and I think it was a little bit on distress because of access, because of the constant bombardment of Kramatorsk and this
Yeah,
kind of these things. And what I did is just stopped and talked to her, and we went for dinner together, and we spent some time together, and we stayed in touch. I think the most important thing is to do is to talk about people, to welcome their pain, and to make understand that this is a common reality. They are not alone. That's what's the most important part of it. I think the most difficult part, I think, it's coming out to Ukraine when you are in a. I think a lot of colleagues can relate to this, especially foreigners, when they come out to Ukraine, where people have, don't have the idea what you saw, what you went through, and
right.
what people in Ukraine see every day, what people in Ukraine go under and live, what kind of condition live under. And that's the most difficult part. I think Ukraine is kind of a bubble where you can share the experience. Of course, it hurts, and there is potentially no safe place to, and yeah, maybe the safe place to talk about these kind of things. But I think Ukraine, it's a very good place for because people empathize with you, have empathy towards you and towards your stories.
Mm.
I think the most difficult part is when you come out to Ukraine and people have no idea what's happening there, and that's why I think it's very important to decompress and to stay in a place where there is no active hostilities and meet people that are like-minded and meet people that know what you went through, and yeah,
Okay.
it's important to talk about it. That's the most important. The first thing that I will do, if time allows, I will stop and talk with a colleague or with a friend. If time doesn't allow, I'll make sure that I will take the time, maybe in the evening or the next morning or the weekend or whenever. I'll make sure that I'll be there for them and to listen to them and to try to understand and to relieve from this pain.
Right. Beautiful.
This picture was taken in Sivesk again, one of the basement of Sivesk. There was some Grad bombardment, Russian Grad bombardment, when I've taken this picture of Halina, that she was reacting at the explosions. Thank God we were safe in the place, but that's why you can see her expression worried that she was leaving. In this again, EU main condition was the same place as this one. Basically, this is the exit of the basement, and
Yeah, yeah.
this is inside the basement.
Mm.
This is a recent picture. Took this picture in Pokrovsk in mid-November. Um, we've been told that this was a result of the shelling. Sorry?
No, no, I sneezed. Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
That this was a result of shelling and firefighters, when we arrived there, firefighters were responding, and this house basically was on fire.
Mm.
And this is very recent. I mean, Pokrovsk is a very important logistical labs. Pokrovsk was he had a pre-war population of around 60,000 people, and now there are roughly 10,000 people still remaining. But the front line is moving in dangerously close. I think Russia now are 7 kilometers away from the south flank of Pokrovsk, and it's already in range of FPV drone. He has been targeted by gliding bombs, which are these aerial bombs the Russian have produced in mass during the during the Cold War, and now they found a new way of readapting them with the GPS guidance kit with and deployable wings. Basically, they are able to throw these bombs 40, 50 kilometers from the front line, from the place that they will target, but also from the front line. And they are super accurate, and they are inflicting a lot of damages on logistical routes and logistical lab of the Ukrainian army.
Mm. It's amazing that they still have firemen working.
Sorry?
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Pokrovsk is a fairly big city, Frank, and I think it's still fairly safe,
yeah.
if I can say that. I mean, he has been targeted and bombed. It's bombed daily by artillery and by gliding bombs, but still, I think the Ukraine needs to do everything that they can to avoid Russian. Getting anywhere close to the railway, to the Pokrovsk railway, and the city as well, because what will happen? Basically, Pokrovsk is at the moment how the front line is sitting. Actually, I can show you the map if you would like. Pokrovsk is sitting right in the middle of the Donetsk region. We have the. Can you see the map?
Right.
Can you see the map? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
We're the capital here.
Oh.
And this is Pokrovsk. Basically, sits in the middle of the Donetsk region. This is the Donetsk region, and what we'll do, he will cut the logistical routes, and we split the front into two sectors, and basically, this part without Pokrovsk will be in danger.
Mm.
Going back to the photos, this is a picture that has been taken the following day of the Groza massacre. This is Kharkiv, and Russian shelled populated area Kharkiv with again Iskander, which is a Russian ballistic missile, as I said before, and they hit a residential building, killing two civilians. We arrived there mainly a couple, probably 50 minutes after the fact happened, and then there were still people escaping. This a funeral of one of the family that has been impacted by the massacre in Rosa. He has been taken on the 8th of October 2023. This picture, this is Maidan Square. Many of you and potentially even you will recognize it. This picture, I think it's important because it reminds. It has been taken around the same time, the 10 years from when the revolution of dignity started and when Maidan started. This is again Vuledar. These people, these are all the residents of Vuledar that they were living under inhumane conditions. And she's Nadia. Nadia was embedded with Oleg, and she was a former resident of Vuledar, which was going there to bring supplies and also to sell other things, other food.
Mm.
This is a picture again from Vuledar. Basically, these people were going back to their basements after collecting the food and water. This picture has been taken in Cherniv. Valentina and Sergei, they were going back to their apartment for the first time after Cherniv was liberated, and they were pretty happy to find the apartment in good shape, in good condition. And he had only few windows broken, but everything else was intact. This was April 2022.
Yeah, those must be incredible moments, for all these people, right? To,
Mhm.
to come back. What are they coming back to? But
Yeah,
but
that's what I try to convey in this picture. I try to convey all the tension and
God,
I think the tension of entering their apartment or not knowing what they will find inside, if Russian, no, but because they didn't write to the far, but there was shelling next to the apartment building, so they didn't know what they will find, and I think
so
yeah,
yeah, but also Diego. I mean, these people must be what, 50 years old, 55 years old,
yeah, probably,
right? Right. I mean,
maybe even younger.
yeah. Where can they really go at this time of their lives to start
Mm,
new again?
mhm.
You, uh, you can feel their pain, their
Mm.
suffering. It's not like they're young people that can start somewhere else in Germany or France or Belgium. There's just nowhere to go.
I agree with you. Potentially they lived all
Very
their
sad.
life there. Potentially they spent all their savings to buy an apartment, and then Russian came at some point
Yeah.
without justification and without a reason as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be really difficult for them to adapt but even just to understand why. I think the most difficult thing is to understand the why this war is happening and why what these people have done to find themselves in the middle of this terrible conflict. And yeah, I think there is no answer to that. It's just
Yeah.
the madness of one man that brings destruction to normal people, to basically could have been me and you there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm, okay.
This is another picture of his name was Sergei. He was 56 years old. He was living in a basement of a bombed out school in Velika Novosilka, which Velika Novosilka is these days heavily bombarded and the Russians are pushing to capture it, and actually they went up north and they are trying to cut the two main logistical routes to supply it. And yeah, I really worry for the people that were in this basement. There were around 20 people of this very big school living in there, and I wonder what's their destiny. I wonder yeah, what's their destiny? What if they are alive?
Mm,
This Liman, this is a picture that's been taken right after he was, maybe probably a month after he was liberated. We can see that there was no electricity, at least outside, and there is one green light
mm,
in the building in front of us, and he had some destruction on the roof.
yeah.
This is a picture of Valentina. It was taken on the outskirts of Chernihiv. She, in a previous life, when she was younger, no, in a previous life, sorry, when she was younger, she was an actress, and she was reacting to the destruction of her house, and she allowed us to go and see for ourselves what Russians have done in her house, and that's and she was almost swearing against them, swearing against the sky that brought destruction to her house and their life. This is a picture that I've taken with while I was embedded with Arthur. Arthur is this guy here, and Mark is was the unit commander at the moment at the time. They are part of the 59th Brigade that has been defending the Hadivka and Pokrovsk area. Here we were pretty close to Russian lines. They were a unit. Those two were a unit of drone operators, and those two were a unit of infantry that was stationed there. And we went to meet them and to work near their position. He was Arthur and Mark were part of this very small unit that goes and does ambushes with the drone, dropping grenades on the enemy trenches and the enemy positions. And I remember after he dropped the grenades on the Russian position, he scout for the infantries, and there has been one of their comrades that blow out to the shot actually to RPG at their position, and then there was a pretty big fire, which is this one. This is Serhi. He was a worker of this factory that we visited in Balaklia in November 2022. After Balaklia was liberated, inside we were in a basement where Russian soldiers captured and tortured people. If you see, he was while I took this picture, he was trying to explain me that they used this electric cable to electric to give to how do you say
Shock,
in English? Yeah, and to shock
electric shock.
electrocute people after they had been captured, and we were in this place. He was explaining us this. It was a pretty terrible moment. It was a very dark basement without light, without anything. The light that you see here is from one of the phone of the person that took us there. It was humid and had a very strong smell, and there was a chair in the middle of the room, and there were this cable dangling down. This is a picture of a drone picture of a village north of Sloviansk. Russian soldiers were stationed in this village. Ukraine artillery has heavily targeted this village to try to push them out. And this picture for me represents the scars that this war is leaving on Ukrainian cities. And also, we didn't mention it, but I'm sure that other people that you had on your channel mention it. The Donetsk region had some of the most amazing forests and parks There is actually a forest in near Liman. That was protected by UNESCO. Was humanity heritage. It's a beautiful region, and that's what the Russian war brought.
Mm.
These are very recent pictures. I'm not allowed to mention what brigade is, where we were, because it's an active casualty collection point, and it can put people in danger. But what I can say is that there is on the Toretsk axis, the Toretsk direction, and I want to show, and I think it's important to show this picture, because I think the Ukrainian, unfortunately, Ukrainian are suffering greatly, and often we hear about military casualties, and mainly because the Ukrainian officials say that they will lower the morale of their troops, and won't convince people to join the fights, as many outlets have been reporting recently. Ukraine is greatly struggling to find men and to new recruits, and there has been a very great number of desertion. Actually, in only in 2024, the number of desertion has been around the 30,000 people. And in August 2024, Ukraine has been forced to drop the charges against desertion, and for people that wanted to rejoin the military
Mm.
units. And this is the consequences of mobilization, forced mobilization. If you've heard that there has been the recruitment police, that there is, in Ukrainian is called TCK, there has been very heavy-handed setting up checkpoints, and even in some cases, even hunting men. And there have been a lot of men that hide in their houses. They don't go anymore about their daily lives, because they are afraid to be mobilized, to send them to be sent straight away to the trenches. Because as they say, mentioning the words, it's a one-way ticket, especially because lately they give you only 3, 4, 5 weeks of training, or two, in some cases even two. I've heard even 2 weeks,
Mm.
and after that they send you straight away to the trenches. It's a very difficult reality. I've been a soldier myself. I'm a former Italian military, and I've been training for like 6, 8 months. And honestly, I don't think I was anywhere close to engage in a war like Ukraine. So I don't know how in 2, 3, 4 weeks people can be ready for a high intensity war, trench warfare, and drone warfare like Ukraine.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, look how young that boy is. My God.
Yeah, it's yeah, yeah.
Mm.
This is a little bit the end of my photo essay, photo story, or at least for now. I've done a lot of other stories, like I covered the theaters, I covered the industrial part of Ukraine, but at the moment I didn't really edit, I didn't do a proper sequence, and at the moment this is where it ends. My let's say my projects, but I'm planning other trips to Ukraine, and I'm sure that it will expand, and more pictures will come, and I'm hoping that the once I go back in spring, the war will be ended. I will go there for seeing people, maybe potentially cheering for the finish of the war,
Yeah.
or remembering the fallen, so trying to rebuild, and that's what I'm hoping the next chapter of this project will be.
Yeah. So when do you plan to go back now, Diego? And you could stop sharing
Uh,
if you like.
yeah, potentially I'm planning to go back in February or March.
Okay. It's very
Uh,
cold there, right?
Yeah, I try to go back all the time during winter actually because I want to all the time to have this mood and the same lights, so it won't be like I don't know how to explain it
Continuity.
with words, but yeah, kind of continuity. I prefer going back all the time in winter, but also I'm a person that loves winter, and here it's summer now, and I'm trying to escape. And also it's even more hot because I'm from Calabria, you know, and all the people that look at me, they say, "No, you are not from there." But I love winter in general, so
Yeah. Yeah. That
I go back to
an
winter.
Italian that loves the winter. I don't understand. All right, so that yeah, and when you go back, do you try to find some of the people that you've met?
No, absolutely,
Yeah, that
absolutely. The only problem is the front line is moving very fast, and it's very difficult to go back in some places. For instance, I wanted to go back to Vuledar in November, but it wasn't possible because it was already under occupation, you know.
yeah,
And potentially sometimes it's possible to go and visit people. For instance, I visited a doctor, a family doctor that has been in Sivesk for pretty much the whole time, and they just decided to move a little bit back in towards Ukrainian lines after like 2 years and a half. And it was possible to go and visit her Hala, to go and visit her regularly, but often it's not possible to go and visit the people. Of course, I try to stay in contact with military that speak English and try to keep all the time in contact with them, and all the time that I have an opportunity, I try to go back and visit them and see how they're going. Yeah.
how did you end up in Australia?
How did I end up in Australia? I ended up in Australia because my brother was here. He had some issues after 20 days that he arrived in Australia, and I came here pretty much to help him out. And after 6 months, he went back, and it's been 7 years that I'm still here, you know. But I'm thinking to move back pretty much very
To
soon.
Italy,
No, to Northern Europe somewhere, but
Northern Europe.
I
Okay.
want to move back to Europe because
Okay.
everything that I'm following also really want to stay close to Ukraine and be able
Right.
mm, to understand what's going on, especially because coming back here, it's like it's another world for real.
Yeah, you're on the other side. Yeah, that's really
Mm.
amazing to be that so far away. Right. I mean,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So I thank you so much for doing this and for coming in and sharing all these wonderful stories and horrible stories. But yeah, but it's important that you're covering it and we
No,
thank you.
thanks for having me. I appreciate you in the platform and the space you are giving to us. I think it's very important to keep talking about this topic, and yeah, I think it's important that we go back to these stories and we keep
Yeah,
telling these stories because news cycles, as we were saying at the beginning of the
yeah,
conversation, news cycles can move forward, but journalism and journalists needs to be there and keep. Telling these stories because the war doesn't stop just because the news cycle moves away, you know. And
yeah.
a lot
No,
of
no.
people are dying, a lot of people are suffering, a lot of people are struggling, and I think photography and journalism has a duty to keep telling these stories.
Yeah, that's an important word. It's our duty, right? On some
Mm,
level.
absolutely, absolutely,
If if these people, right, like these people let you in to document, you can't just forget them, right? It's not right.
exactly, exactly,
Not
exactly.
right. So I thank you, and you should know, Diego, whenever you have new work and you want to show, please just contact me, and we get you on again.
It sounds good, Frank. I will.
Okay,
Probably we can talk about after the next trip. We can stay in touch.
great. And I wish you and your family a wonderful Christmas, and
Thanks, Frank.
be safe, and we will be in touch.
Thanks, Frank. All the
Okay.
best. Thanks everyone for listening to our conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank.
Ciao.